Everyone, and I mean everyone, loves a rags to riches story, and our next guest put his own twist on that tale with a life story that took him from behind bars to behind the bench. As a juvenile, Greg Mathis was incarcerated numerous times, but one defining encounter changed his life path forever, and at the age of 35, after a career that spanned politics and the law, he was elected as one of Michigan's youngest district court judges. As host of the syndicated TV hit Judge Mathis, the Honorable Judge Greg Mathis adjudicates disputes of all shapes and sizes on television, and his 15-season reign has made him a household name. He is known for a no-nonsense, yet compassionate style. Here's a look at why he's become such a beloved figure on American television.
I found that you yourself were once in a situation similar to mine, and as you see, you made it to be a judge. So it's truly inspiring, and you are part of the reason I haven't stopped.
I'm so glad to hear that it has an effect for me to talk about my journey. So it takes folks showing an example of overcoming those obstacles, and you've done the same thing today. You've shown the millions of people an example of how to come out of those streets, transform your life, and get a master's degree, highly educated man. So once again, I congratulate you.
In 2001, the judge and his wife Linda opened the Mathis Community Center in Detroit, Michigan. Through their nonprofit, they've helped ex-offenders and young people alike. He's here to share how he juggles being a judge, an author, a husband, a father, and a mentor. I'll be taking notes. He believes strongly in the power of second chances. Judge Greg Mathis, welcome to Full Frame. I don't know how you had time for us after that list.
Listen to you.
It's amazing. Let me talk to you about the perspective. Standing before the judge, being the judge, people standing before you. I mean, what a journey. And what did you learn on this side and on this side that makes you think about maybe changing the judicial system, or maybe it's okay? Sure. I mean, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, one of the things I learned when I was a judge in Detroit, that education and the failed education system, unfortunately, in urban America contributes to an increase in the incarceration rate. There's a direct connection between failed education system and an increase in the incarceration system. So I learned that in the criminal courts. Well, on television, I've learned that many who have, same thing, failed education, they have more problems in their lives. And the education system, if it were enhanced, would eliminate many of their problems. Many of them come from impoverished backgrounds. Many of them come in alcohol addicted or drug addicted. And we know that 80% of those in prison also are there for drug abuse, drug sales, or violence connected to drugs. And 80% of them have only a GED or no high school diploma.
You know, it's interesting. I talked to a man who did a documentary in a very troubled neighborhood, kind of trying to get at the heart of what's going on. And he said some of these young people he spoke to said to him, I'm not going to live to be 20 or 30 or 35. What difference does it make? You know, I'll take the drugs. I live in a violent community. I could be shot any day. I'd rather just numb myself. And I'm sure you probably have seen that as well. And again, I think it gets back to what you're talking about, education and opportunity. Those two are linchpins, aren't they?
Yep. You know, my observation of some of the urban youth that I deal with is they have a different observation of the stages of life. Most of us believe that life involves educating yourself as a young person and then going on to get a job and career, then raising a family and living in your golden years. Well, their observation of life is being raised in poverty, surviving through poverty, and dying before you get a career or an education that would lead to a career. So that's the dynamic we see between those who live in a drug and violence community and those who live a lifestyle that leads to a regular lifespan.
Tell your story for those who aren't familiar with it. I mean, what fueled you to go in one direction? Talk to me about the importance of redemption and second chances, and why you're here today.
Yeah, I was raised in the toughest housing projects in Detroit by a single mother, raising 4 boys. She worked 2 jobs, one as a nurse's aide at night caring for the sick, and then as a housekeeper during the day. Caring for the rich. And in between those times, she gave as much commitment as she could to us, and primarily instilling the values of spirituality. She made sure we went to church. If she couldn't take us, the deacon would come and get us. And she emphasized education. She'd get home from her housekeeping job at 3 p.m., be right there. We had to do our homework. She'd take her nap, get up, cook dinner, and then would go on to work her evening job. And so the values were education and spirituality. However, 4 boys left alone in the toughest housing projects in Detroit, we led to a lot of troubles. And I was in and out of juvenile, and ultimately came before a judge who gave me a second chance. He ordered that I, after 7 months in jail, he ordered that I get an education, a GED, or serve out a longer sentence. And I took the latter. And one of the changes one of the reasons I changed was my mother came and paid a visit while I was in jail, and kind of was crying and reminded me of all the hurt I had caused her, all the embarrassment in our community and at church. And then she said, and now I'm going to die. I went to the doctor. He says I have cancer and I have less than a year to live. So if anything would change my life, that was. And so it became a race against her remaining months. And I was able to get a GED within 6 months and become enrolled in a major university, Eastern Michigan University, through an affirmative action program, which I support. And ultimately, after getting that education, some 17 years later, I was the youngest judge in Michigan. And so it was that journey, one, from living in an environment that was overwhelmed with drugs, guns, and criminal behavior, to one, leaving that environment and going, educating myself, and then going into a career which led to today's status, I guess.
Talk to me about the stigma attached with leaving prison and trying to turn your life around, because it's not easy. I mean, you're this pinnacle, this beacon, it can be done, but there is a stigma associated with time behind bars. People shy away from you. There aren't a lot of people who want to give you a second chance.
Yep, and not only is that the case, but there's a distrust in many instances for those who have did the work to overcome their circumstances. For example, and I like to personalize things because it brings it home, this isn't just theory. In my situation, I got a GED, got my bachelor's degree, went to law school, got my law degree, passed the bar exam. But the State Bar of Michigan held my law license up for 3 years, even though my record had been expunged. And because they have the discretion, the state bar is like a club, or you don't have to let anyone in, so regardless. And so I had to go to the state Supreme Court and win my right to practice law after I had overcome all those obstacles. So it isn't just the employer who looks at the record and says, nope, we're not going to hire you. It's all of society in many instances.
I spoke to somebody, someone who was a hiring manager, and she was so troubled. She just interviewed this guy for a job, and I said, well, what's bothering you? She said, well, I kept looking at his resume, and he was qualified, but he had this 2-year gap. And finally, I asked him about it, and he looked down at his shoes, and he said, I was in prison. And somehow everything turned. He looked like a great candidate, and that's a big piece of this too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, America has the largest number of prisoners in its institutions, even more than China, who have 1 billion people. We have less than half of that. India has 1 billion people, yet we have more people in prison than they do. And so what we find is this incarceration rate that we know is being privatized for the profits of others, and therefore there's not really a lot of incentive, particularly in the government, legislative branches of government and the executive branches, which are being heavily influenced by lobbyists. So there's a lot of incentive and disincentive to address that.
It's interesting. It all comes down to zip codes in some respects.
Yeah.
I mean, you were born in this zip code. This is what could happen with you. You're born in this zip code. You could end up just down here, which I want to bring back to zip codes Detroit. A lot of people leaving Detroit. You and your wife very committed to it. It is a city that's gone through a lot of trouble and a lot of lost jobs. Talk to me about going back there and the importance of giving back after you've gotten to the point that you're at today.
Yeah, you know, interestingly enough, my wife and I, as you said, started a community center in Detroit a couple of years after I came on air and was able to put two nickels together. 10,000 square foot community center, ex-offender programs, youth programs, etc. However, I started a nonprofit agency 2 years after I graduated from undergrad called Young Adults Asserting Themselves. That's my 501c3 agency, and I started it in the basement of a church. Every month, me and a couple of folks that I was able to recruit in the career marketplace, if you will, whom had graduated from college, we give out flyers all around the community and have young adults come to find out about the job training programs and immediate employment positions that were already available in that community. We'd have mentors come in and talk about their lives. And so I began that a couple of years after leaving college. An interesting story about that. The reason I began that, and I don't know, it may have been it may have been a selfish motivation. When I came home from college, I went back to the housing projects that I grew up in, and I went to some of my old buddies and said, hey, you can lead a gang, you can lead a street, and go and get a free college education like I did. They pistol whipped me and robbed me.
Jeez.
Same guys I ran with. So I said then, well, I'm not going door to door anymore. I'm going to go to the church or the outskirts and see if the pastor will let me use the basement every first Saturday of every month. And whoever comes in the door for help, I'll help them. But I'm not going to evangelize because some folks don't want to hear the message. So I began this right after returning from college.
Which I think gets at the heart of another issue, which is empathy. A lot of these guys, I mean, you ran with these guys. They don't have any problem pistol whipping you and robbing you. Yeah. And that's a real issue with a lot of prisoners. We talked to Tim Robbins about this, trying to get them to have empathy, to actually have these feelings. They're dead inside in many respects.
Absolutely. You hit the right word, dead inside. And I remember the feeling, quite frankly, myself. I felt that when I was on those streets victimizing people, I felt that society doesn't care about us, so we don't care about society. That was the overwhelming feeling. I mean, it's like yesterday. I've had that feeling. It was like, I don't care what I do to people. They don't care about me. And that numbs you inside. And then you see so much carnage, and you see so much crime and devastation, and that numbs you as well. It's like part of everyday life. Well, so-and-so got robbed, so-and-so got shot, there was a murder. Oh, really? Oh, okay. They're moving right along.
So when you went back and you wanted to do this kind of work, what was going through your head? Because you've seen it on this side and this side. Mm-hmm. What are some tangible things that can be done to thread the needle, get somebody to move to the other side?
Yeah. Well, first you have to change their mindset. And that's a mindset of giving them hope and opportunity, that there is something for them. And then I can't emphasize education enough, because that empowers you to be able to matriculate the system or to become employable. We talk about Detroit. Well, 47% of Detroiters are functionally illiterate, meaning they are, I don't care how many jobs you bring to town, they are unprepared and cannot succeed in those jobs. Because the factories are now, the unskilled jobs
Sure.
that were in the factories, that's gone. So we have to educate and prepare for the workplace. And then for those ex-offenders, we have to provide some incentives for employers. I worked on and successfully worked on some legislation that provided for tax credits for those businesses that would employ ex-offenders. Also at our community center, I did a joint venture, or we did a joint venture with the county in Detroit, Wayne County, whereby we put up a 50-50 monies in helping ex-offenders get franchises, because as you say, no one was hiring them. We had 22 young adults obtain franchises, janitorial franchises, and the overwhelming majority of them succeeded. One young man, he started out 3 years ago. It's typically you start out by yourself and then you may be able to hire an assistant. This young man started out by himself 3 years ago. He has 3 assistants and his income was $225,000.
Jeez, that's great.
And that's because he had opportunity to make a living.
Sensitivity, dialogue, get rid of the stereotypes.
That's right. That's what I see as
It sounds so simple, but it's more complex, isn't it?
No, it's very difficult to change the hearts and minds of people.
But we saw how change happened in you. It can happen in all of us. Judge Mathis, thanks so much for coming and talking to us. Appreciate it. Coming up next, this week's full-frame close-up on a unique business that is giving former prisoners second chances and going green all at the same time.